KTRS. That was President Obama over the weekend. Just extraordinary things. The sanctions were lifted, adding billions of dollars into the Iranian economy. And then, after digesting that, then comes word that a prisoner swap between the Iranians and the U.S. 5 American prisoners were in the deal. Tense negotiations throughout. When it was all said and done, Secretary of State John Kerry and President Obama were thrilled with the deal. But the criticism has come in from all sides, including many on the Republican side. Kenneth Moton is with us, ABC News correspondent, will be joining us here in mere moments when we get to him. Pretty interesting story. On top of all of that, then you hear that in Iraq, there were a number of U.S. prisoners, or a few, military workers were obtained by some Shiite militia, which there's some speculation that those militia members in Iraq were unhappy with the Shiite in Iran for cutting a deal and warming up to the West. So there was some speculation that that might be a retaliation to what's going on in Iran. We'll just have to wait and see what happens all there.
We have him.
Kenneth Moton with us, ABC News correspondent. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. First, let's start with the sanctions. That was sort of scheduled to start over the weekend, right?
It was. Implementation day happened on Saturday. Tens of billions of dollars are now flowing into the Iranian economy, and we're left with making sure that international regulators are staying on top of Iran to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to their nuclear program.
So far, they have, right? They have done everything they said they would do.
Well,
we're going to do.
So far, except for what happened in October, which led to more sanctions on some entities after Iran conducted a ballistic missiles test. GOP leaders and critics of the Obama administration and this Iran nuclear deal were quick to jump up and say, see, we told you Iran cannot be trusted. This ballistic missiles test, Iran has said that it had nothing to do with any type of creating a nuclear program, but it was part of the deal, and so there were more sanctions against entities involved in that ballistic missiles test. But I can tell you that right now, critics say that it will do little to stop Iran from doing it again.
But they have poured concrete into some nuclear facilities and have given up their plutonium and all those types of things,
They've
right?
done all of those things, and that's what happened over the weekend. Is in Switzerland, Secretary of State John Kerry, his counterparts, also the international community that were part of this deal, they all made sure they went down the list and the guidelines to make sure that Iran did what they were supposed to do so they could fully implement this deal.
All right. That is extraordinary news in and of itself. Then comes a bombshell, which is bigger than lifting sanctions on Iran, which was a big bombshell to begin with, and that was this prisoner exchange.
Really, and that's the thing is everyone, the resounding sentiments from this is thank God that these Americans have been released from the prison in Iran. But I can tell you that right now this was a bombshell. This was a shock. This is something that there have been critics for the past few months that say, who have been calling for these Americans to be released, and there were some back channeling. There were things going on. There were reporters and journalists who knew that there was this backdealing and backdoor negotiations happening to free these Americans, but it all happened over the weekend.
And the Americans get their 5 American Iranian dual citizenship prisoners, and the U.S. gives up 7. Do we know anything about these 7 that are being given back to Iran?
We know little about these 7 Iranians who are being given back to the country. We do know that they were charged with various crimes. Some of them were awaiting trial. We're not sure of any convictions, but we do know that they will be handed over or in the process of being handed over. I can report that those 5 Americans, at least 3 to 4 of them, they are not only are they out of the country, but they're in Germany. Their families will be reuniting with them today. They're getting medical treatment, and then they will get back to the U.S. as soon as possible.
The 7 who America gave up, they weren't quote-unquote terrorists. They were more charges of espionage and sort of corporate theft and stealing, right?
Right. There were various crimes from the ones you described. Nothing of a terrorist nature. I think that would have been a non-starter if it had been, but this was more spying. This was more corporate espionage. crimes of that sort.
Are there any more American prisoners still held by Iranians?
Yes, we understand that there are several that are still being detained. That the U.S. has said, and Secretary Kerry has said that the work will continue to make sure that those Americans, those hostages, prisoners, as you want to call it, we've heard them described either way, that they're always working to free those Americans. But at this point, these are the ones that we have. These are the ones that are on the way home, including Washington Post reporter Jason Rezaian, one who has been very popular, I should say, in this list of hostages and prisoners, and his family is reuniting with him today, and he will be home soon.
Kenneth, any connection between the Iraqi prisoner story we hear about this morning and what's going on in Iran?
At this point, we're monitoring that situation. At this point, it doesn't appear to be so, but we know 3 American contractors, not military members, have disappeared in Iraq, and the State Department, the Pentagon, at this point, looking for them, trying to figure out where they disappeared to.
Kenneth Moton, ABC News correspondent in Washington, D.C. Kenneth, thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
7:58 KTRS.
Anyone retiring